So we have a lot of thunder for you, as you can see. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Good, good.
Pretty good, thanks.
So my name is
Great,
Marina.
thanks.
I'm
Yeah,
with
thanks
Bold
for having us.
Fun. And I'm really excited to have you guys here for this Legends of Lightning Pioneers conversation. As I mentioned, we have a hackathon that is going on right now with Lightning as the focus, and it ends approximately December 10. We have over 66 projects that are being built as we speak, and about 220 builders that are in this particular hackathon. So it's very exciting. And we've also connected the dots to make sure that this is as global as possible, working with hackathons in Indonesia, Brazil, and other locations that really hopefully make an impact in the participation of the audience and also the type of products that are built that are really focused on like actually making Bitcoin a global possibility. So thank you for being here. I wanted to ask Desiree to introduce herself first. And obviously, I know your background that you also were a fellow, did some research, and then you became a founder. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your rabbit hole journey and then how you decided you were going to go into gaming, it would be wonderful.
Yeah, so my name is Desiree Dickerson, and I am CEO and co-founder of THNDR. My journey, yeah. So my academic background is in the sciences. I have done some interesting research in the fields of mostly genetics, and I went to grad school for this, and after grad school, I got into consulting, as one does, with all of the great student loans. So I sold my soul for a while, and that's where I kind of learned about Bitcoin and fell in love with Bitcoin, and I spent most of my free time just like reading about Bitcoin and everything that was going on, and I became really involved with the community and just active on Twitter, and I ended up working at Lightning Labs. So I was VP of BizOps at Lightning Labs for quite some time, several years, and while I was there, I was just super interested in, how can we get people using Bitcoin more and more. And one of the use cases that was most interesting to me was gaming. One, because I love gaming myself, but less selfishly, games have always traditionally been a really wonderful way to introduce audiences to new technology. So it was something I was passionate about. Worked on some community projects with folks, the folks from Zebedee, and that is, how I met Jack, who was the original founder of THNDR, and we kind of combined forces with some other folks, and THNDR kind of became what it is today. We have a amazing suite of mobile games, kind of in the hyper casual, more so recently in the casual categories, that allow users to earn nano rewards in the games via the Lightning Network, and it's been an incredible tool to drive long-term retention, also to increase monetization for as a games developer. But most recently, we've kind of added some social competitive features that our users have been really asking for. So most recently, we launched Clinch, which is a non-custodial peer-to-peer wagering application and also API, and we have it live in our solitaire game right now. And we have,
which I play.
Oh, exactly. Yes. So are you clinching at all? Are you wagering?
Well, I just listened to your session in Amsterdam about it, so I'm not clinching just yet, but I did check it out.
Okay. Well, ping me when you need the password if you want to check it out, and we'll get you playing.
Nice.
I'm never end up winning. It is very competitive. We do have matchmaking coming up soon. So it will be skills based tier level matchmaking. But for now, it's kind of like the Wild West. So I've been fleeced of a lot of sats. So that's what we're really kind of working on now, and is our focus at Thunder.
Yeah, you did the free to win. I remember understanding that you're really trying to make sure that it's not a really huge problem to like even just be part of the game, right? Because a lot of other apps that are gaming really, just charge you $20 to just begin, and the offboarding, if you do earn money, takes months. So maybe that's why Clinch was important to create this limitless waging and make it easier for the competitive gaming, right? Which is $16 billion industry, if I heard you correctly.
Yeah, paid competitive gaming is definitely like a new phenomenon in the games industry, and that's really, you think of, it's mostly skills based, so it's very reliant on skills. So you're seeing like people, play one of the most popular paid competitive games is solitaire. So you're seeing, mostly women engaging in this type of gameplay, but it is very, very quickly becoming, a really meaningful industry segment, because it does bring in a lot of money in a world where it's like post ATT. All these changes, like regulatory changes for the mobile gaming industry, developers are really struggling to monetize their games, so a lot of folks are kind of looking towards paid competitive gaming. So Clinch really kind of scratches that itch, so to speak.
Perfect. Thank you, Desiree. Eh, Adem, you also studied bioinformatics, right? Like you also come from the bio world. Tell us a little bit about your journey and then how you came to build Relai.
Yeah, that's true. So my name is Adem. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Relay, and I'm coming from also an academic background. I have a PhD in bioinformatics, so it's a bit of a mix between biology and informatics, where the idea is that we would just be analyzing a lot of data in front of the computer all day long. And after my postdoc, I realized academia was really not for me anymore. I didn't like the competition happening there. For me, academia was all about collaboration, but I was quite wrong about it. So I did what I always wanted to do, which was building something on my own. And I launched my own small IT company. And I was at the time involved in some blockchain projects where I built some mobile wallets. Just that I really liked the technology. I was in for the tech initially. So, but I just thought that there was no way that people would use any cryptocurrency if it wasn't with a simple mobile app. And that's when I started just developing mobile apps for different blockchain projects. But then I met Julian, my co-founder, in 2019, and he was the one coming up with the idea of Bitcoin. I was into Bitcoin already way before, but just doing this for Bitcoin didn't make sense initially, because I was like, Bitcoin is already very easy. I mean, how easier you want to make it? But I'm obviously coming from tech. I know how to create a wallet. I know all these things. Then he gave me the example of his friends and family asking for some Bitcoin. And at the time, it was all the KYC process with all the different exchanges. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And then obviously the rabbit hole, and then started Relay and all. And now it's been 3 years and a half. And we provide the easiest on-off ramp to Bitcoin in Europe. Bitcoin only, and a non-custodial wallet integrated in the app.
And tell me, because I mom test and the drunk test, and how it was the goal that it was super easy to onboard. Tell us a little bit about your goal in building Relay.
Sure. So at the time, it was all after 2017, all the hype and everybody getting into cryptocurrencies, and started to just onboard on as many exchanges as possible. And they realized quickly that this is not the way they want to deal with any cryptocurrency. And we just wanted to make this as easy as possible. And for this, we had to avoid all the personal information aspect, also for privacy reasons, obviously. And we were in Switzerland, so it was just a perfect location also to start this, because we Thanks to the license we have in Switzerland, we can exchange up to 1,000 Swiss francs per day per user without requiring any document or any information. It started at 5,000 Swiss francs initially when we launched, and then they reduced it to 1,000 per day, which is still pretty enough for a lot of users. So the onboarding process, we don't ask anything. It's just 3 simple screens to get into the app. And then users need to create an order with the amount and the frequency. And then they just need to send us the money and we send them Bitcoin back. Everything is in the Relai app. As I said, there is also a Bitcoin wallet integrated, so they don't need to go to anywhere else. And again, all of this without any document or any personal information required. We do require the IBAN because we need to know from which bank account the money is coming from, but that's the only thing we ask when creating an order. And we think it's the easiest solution, and we hope we can even make it even easier, but I think we're doing pretty well at it already.
That's very nice. So I remember listening to something that was said as also that you said that RSS is Twitter 1.0. And I want to bring Oscar into this conversation because obviously he comes in the RSS and is using this open possibility with Fountain. And so please tell us a little bit about Fountain, what you're doing. I listened to your Adam Curry value for value. You're changing my mind about value for value. Thank you. So just tell us about yourself. Tell us how you got into the space and what is RSS for people who don't know what it is, and then how you've been innovating with streaming, boost, and splits if possible.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Marina. Yeah, my name's Oscar Merry, and I'm the CEO of Fountain. Fountain fundamentally is a podcast app. It does everything you'd expect a podcast app to do. But we have the added benefit of using the Bitcoin Lightning Network to facilitate streaming payments that work in an open way. I think one of the interesting things about podcasting as a media format is that it's one of the last traditional media formats, because it still is quite old. It's like 20 years old. It's one of the last traditional media formats that is still very open. It's a very fragmented industry. You have hundreds of different hosting companies that onboard podcasters and help them, set their podcast up. And you also have hundreds of different podcast apps. Obviously you've got the big players, Apple and Spotify, but neither of them have more than a 30% market share. So a lot of the products and features that you see in other online media, such as video or social media, don't really exist in podcasting. And that's where we see the opportunity, both in terms of social features, but also payments features that work between different apps. So yeah, on Fountain, you can stream money for every minute that you listen to the content to give value back to the content creators that you appreciate. And you can also send one-off payments with messages, which are kind of just more like a traditional, payment and comment system like you'd see on other social apps. So yeah, happy to talk about the kind of challenges, but also the opportunities with using the Lightning Network to kind of build cool things.
And you've integrated Nostr, right? I mean, you're encouraging that as well.
Yeah, so we have a very basic Nostr integration already in the app, whereby you can receive Nostr's apps into your Fountain wallet if you'd like to do that. And we're working on a more deep integration whereby the comments that you create and the conversations that you have in Fountain around podcasting are kind of part of the wider Nostr network. Happy to talk more about that as well.
Yeah, commenting is payments with a message, and that is this point, correct?
Oh, just say that again. Sorry, you just cut out there.
That your commenting system is payments with a message, and it's unique to Fountain at this point. It is not cross-app possible just yet, correct?
Yeah, so the way that we call them boosts in podcasting 2.0, and there's a lot of different, words for these payments with messages flying around. I'm sure they'll get unified at some point. But in the podcasting world, a payment with a message sent over the Lightning Network is called a boost. And these boosts do work cross app. So as a podcaster, I can, run my own Lightning node, or I can use a service like Fountain's Podcaster Wallet to receive sats from listeners. And this does work cross app. So it's not just Fountain that has implemented this spec. There are other apps too, and I expect more and more of them to kind of join the network. So the payments part of podcasting 2.0 works across app, but the interaction part still doesn't work cross app. So in Fountain, actually, we display the boost payments from all apps, but obviously Fountain users can't reply to the users that send those payments in from other apps. So it's kind of the view layer works cross app, but the actual interaction layer doesn't yet work cross app.
So I wanted to ask you, what keeps you up at night right now? Like with what you're building, what is the new frontier or the challenge that you're facing with Lightning or facing with a particular area for your projects and for your companies?
I think one thing that keeps me up at night is, building if building a startup is hard enough, right? It's really hard. And then building a startup in Bitcoin is even harder. And I think for numerous different reasons. I think, the big one which, I know all of us here, actually, I think, all of us do probably a pretty decent job at like the user experience part and making products that like feel like non-Bitcoin apps. But, a lot of times it's something that I think about a lot is like, okay, I try to always approach building Thunder as, okay, we're building the best business that we can, regardless of Bitcoin or not. We don't try and just like shoehorn Bitcoin into the business just for the sake of, we love Bitcoin and we think it's going to change the world. But like that's what kind of keeps me up at night, like not in a bad way, is more of a good way, is like, how can we be using Bitcoin in a way that we're harnessing the power of Bitcoin to solve real business needs or to solve real user problems. So really kind of approaching business building in this space pragmatically rather than just like optimistically, like, okay, we're, going to just hope that Bitcoin makes us better. So I think, everyone here probably has the same type of approach, but I think like that's just like comes with like the maturation of businesses in the space. So that's something I'm always kind of thinking about, that keeps me up at night in more of a good way than a bad, I would say.
Yeah, for me, literally right now, it's Lightning itself. So within Thunder and Fountain, Relai is the last to join the Lightning boat, and we are right now testing. We have beta testers testing the Lightning integration. We started on Monday inviting external testers. So it's literally Lightning that is keeping me up at night. Also in a good way. Just make sure that it works and that we can send, receive properly, and just collecting feedback and working on fixing bugs, and also that we can launch it to our whole user base as soon as possible. And I also like what Desiree said about making it feel like non-Bitcoin. I mean, it sounds good and bad at the same time. It's like, why would you make it feel like non-Bitcoin? But I feel what you said, because the user experience is so much better already in many other domains and other apps, that if we can get to that level in Bitcoin apps as well, I think that would be a very, very big step forward.
I remember you saying that it took a minute to onboard, but 30 minutes to get the Bitcoin. And so that's why you were struggling and figuring out how to deal with the Lightning and the channels and all the management of the nodes, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was the last missing piece for us to really reach out to our promise, which was get your Bitcoin and hold it in less than a minute. And the last part was the on-chain part. And that was part of my announcement in Lugano 2-3 weeks ago.
Got it. And Oscar, how about you? We just saw each other in Nostr Asia. So I know that you're thinking about monetization and thinking about how to bring value to the podcasters in the industry. So I just wanted to see how you see and what keeps you up at night.
Yeah, I would say for me, probably the biggest, challenge is still the on-ramps for users that haven't experienced Bitcoin before. Obviously, what the likes of Relay are doing is really, really cool. But I think thinking about the on-ramp, not from the perspective of buying Bitcoin, as a savings instrument or as an investment, but literally just buying a very, very small amount of Bitcoin so that you can use it in an application, be that, a media streaming app like Fountain or a game. The on-ramps don't really work for that use case right now. They all involve, some form of KYC. And I think for Fountain, that's still a massive barrier because, again, you're onboarding new users that maybe have not come across Bitcoin before. And for them, they already have to make the decision to trust Fountain, give Fountain a go, download Fountain, create a Fountain account. And then if as part of that flow, we have to, introduce them to a third party entity that they have to make a second decision about trusting that brand and then going through the KYC process on that second level, that's a challenge for me. And we do have a partnership with MoonPay at the moment, which does let new users buy their first Bitcoin in the app, but it's still not a good experience. And to really take these kind of things mainstream and get the friction down, we need some kind of new on-ramp mechanism for the users that are, maybe they just want to buy like $5. And, if there's a service that can do that, where you can kind of sidestep that secondary account creation process, that would be, I think, massive. So that's probably the main thing that keeps me up.
In the US, you have the Cash App availability, like that's how people top up, or how do they do it?
Well, I'm in the UK and we have Cash App, but there's no Lightning integration. There's no Strike here. Obviously, we do have Relay, but Relay don't support Lightning, so the options are limited. And I think for most people, it's still very difficult.
So I can see a partnership coming up soon now that you have Lightning. Then. So this is a really important question that you brought up, the trust factor. Could you share with us a little bit about how you work with your users, how you include the people that are in your user base? How do you get their feedback? I remember, Desiree, you were mentioning that you did a survey of your users at one point. I do believe that for people to trust Bitcoin, they need to trust the services and projects that are in the space. So if you could share with us a little bit about your views about how you present the company and the whole concept of trust with your users, that'd be really great.
Oh man, I think you guys feel this very directly, since you guys have apps. Well, one of the most humbling, some of the most humbling feedback you can get is App Store and Google Play reviews. I used to personally read and respond to all of them. And I mean, it gets a little much after there's, thousands and thousands and thousands of them. But, folks are wildly honest on there, almost to a fault, where, they're like, they give you 1 star and they're like, I'll change this if it's like all good so far, but I'll update this if I end up really liking the app. And I'm like, how is that a 1 star, friend? But, so I think it's, we respond to everything. We have wonderful support on the team now, but we respond to everything. We take customer support very, very seriously. I think that's been a lot of what's kind of driven the success of Thunder, and especially the retention of our products, is because we very, very deeply care about our users, and we literally only build for our users. We built Clinch because our users were asking for it. We really wanted to explore some other things, but again, we didn't because users weren't asking for, ordinals are cool, but no user ever, I think like a few users asked for ordinals, but not to the, effect that like people are asking to wager against each other. So that's something we do. We do surveys a lot. But the other thing is, we have like 30,000 people in our Discord. We have, lots of people in our Telegram, and, just constantly being in there and listening, always responding. The other thing that I love that we do is we do 2 weekly streams with the community. One is called like WTF are we doing, where we chat about like, okay, what we're building at Thunder at the time. We get feedback. We literally talk to our customers, and we just tell them exactly what we're doing. So we build in the open in that sense. And then we have another live stream event called Thunderversity. It's more around education, but like we can really start to understand where our users are at, where it's like, okay, do they not even understand what Lightning is? Should they even ever be exposed to Lightning? Should it just be Bitcoin? So I mean, we're a really small team now and we're making it work, but it's just like being in the trenches with the customer, and then, also like actually being our own customer. Like, I play Clinch every single day. Our CTO is in there playing Clinch every single day, and that's how we're finding bugs and improving the user experience. So, that's, again, like we're still very small and we are early. So, I don't know if this will always scale, but I do feel like it is kind of a part of, our DNA at Thunder, because like, all of the success that we've seen so far is because we've basically just built what the users have wanted. Anybody could have done it. Like, they're very open. So if you build what they want, they'll use it, which I think is such a simple concept, but like a lot of times we don't really like remind ourselves that, if you're trying to sell something to someone, you should ask them what their problems are first, and you should ask them what they want you to build, and that's a really great way to find product market fit. So that's just like kind of been our experience.
I remember playing the game, and then there was at the time where I was using the free version, because then I said, well, if I believe in Bitcoin, I should support projects in Bitcoin. But I remember this ad kept on popping up to say like upgrade to a new solitaire version. And you guys were so fast to answer and say, don't click that. That is not us. Do not download. That's a different game. And I don't know if you ever solved it, but I remember just feeling like, okay, they're on top of it. They're paying attention, they're solving people's needs and responding really quickly. So I remember that. And so congratulations on that.
Good. That ad was so annoying because, you can't really control. Yeah, you can't control. It's only to a certain extent you can like click on and off of things for your ad network. And they kept serving us that. And it was just so misleading. I mean, we struggled with it for probably 6 months, just like complaining to the ad networks, trying to get them blocked. But I mean, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, it was like, honestly, it was also an inferior solitaire version. It was very ugly and like very clunky, although they are very successful. Like, don't get me wrong, like they make tons of money, but I'm like, come on, like it's clearly not our game, or it's just really beautiful. So, but thank you for being patient with us during that.
Yeah, it's just like, this doesn't look right.
For sure.
And Oscar, as I mentioned, that when I met you, I downloaded Fountain immediately, because why would I use something else? Now that I know that it has every podcast I would ever want to listen, you just go there. You can get sats, but you can also support. I've been looking at the streaming, which is sats per minute, and the splits. I love how transparent you're showing, like how each podcaster decides how to do the splits. And so I assume that goes to the trust concept that you're building. Could you share again about that in the trust factor?
Yeah, definitely. I think trust is a big part of what we do, and that's why, yeah, in the wallet view, you can see exactly where the payment splits are going. I also think that as well as trust, it also demonstrates what's different about, in our case, streaming money, but what's different about Lightning, because, people, once you get over that initial onboarding jump, people are excited and curious and interested about, how these things work. And so for us, showcasing that, having the ability to see the splits from the player, is interesting for people. They like it, and it's fun to see what the podcasters choose to put in their splits as well, whether that's a co-host or an open source project that they just want to support with 10% of their streams every episode. So yeah, I think being open in that way is really beneficial.
And then with you, I remember there's this phrase that says gradually, then suddenly, right? That you have to go slow to be able to go fast. And I assume that is one of the reasons why you decided to wait on Lightning. How would you bring in the trust factor for Relai and how you thought about building?
Sure. Well, ideally, they shouldn't have to trust us, but obviously that's another story. But it's been important from the beginning for us. That's why we really, whatever we do, the non-custodial aspect for us is very, very important. And that was the biggest challenge also for Lightning. I mean, since day one, we had the question, when Lightning. I even have the T-shirt still. So it was a question since day one, but there were two aspects that was very important for us. The non-custodial, it had to be non-custodial, like our on-chain wallet, and the liquidity aspect. So we can come to the details a bit later. But we have a lot of responsibilities in terms of education as well. So more than 90% of our users are total newbies. They heard about Bitcoin, but they don't know what a wallet is. They don't know what a seed phrase is. And we still give them this whole responsibility of taking care of their own seed. So we can't just throw 12 words at them and be like, well, deal with it, right? They complain many times about where is my email, where is my password. We had a few rare cases where people would lose their seed and help us and ask us for help. So now we enforce the backup after the first order. We let it go for the first order for the user experience, but after that, it's mandatory to do the backup. We have users from all over Europe, and the seed words are in English. Like we have French people, we have German people, and it's not, for us, it's very easy. Like I know I speak English, so it's easy to write a door or a chair. I know how to write these words because I know what they mean, which is not the case for most of our users. So that's why we put a lot of efforts in educating them. We do this either via the app. We do this with a newsletter that we launched, 21 lessons, where in every lesson, we try to explain one simple part of Bitcoin, be it the seed phrase, what is a wallet, how to send and receive, all of these different aspects.
Okay, so as founders and the whole rabbit hole of monetization, all of these builders in Bolt Fun are going to obviously be thinking about monetization and how they can go through this experience. And so potentially, if you can share with us how you thought about it, what were the challenges that were unique to Bitcoin or to your particular app? It'd be great to know how do you see this and what are the options out there with monetization. On Monday, we're going to have a session with several VCs. So it is a precursor to that conversation, but just VC money, no VC money, user experience. How do you think about that for your company?
I'll just speak to us, but monetization is like the foundation of building anything that's going to succeed. I mean, obviously you're never going to get it right in the beginning, right? But like I think always having monetization in the back of your head and revenue in the back of your head is like the most key piece when building. Like, I mean, gone are the days of just having a cool idea and getting funding. Like now you have to have a product, you have to have users, and you have to have revenue numbers. Even for like pretty early stage, and it's just changed so drastically. And if you don't have those things, there just has to be like a very, very solid plan to, getting to those different, whether it's user or like actual revenue targets. So one thing that we really invested in heavily up front, I think it came from just like again, like a part of our DNA being very mobile games driven, was investing very heavily in data analytics. I wouldn't say that most companies would need to the extent that we did. Like, I mean, we A/B test every single change, but that's very much the nature of the industry in which we operate. But it's been so helpful, because I think that if you don't know what your CAC is, you don't know what your LTV is, you don't know what your retention metrics look like. Like, you probably don't know how much trouble that you're
Can you
in.
tell people what is CAC and LTV?
Yeah, I mean, CAC is customer acquisition cost. So your cost for acquiring a user, your LTV is the lifetime value of that user. And obviously every company is different. Like, I'm not going to say, like, if you don't have like a D30 retention metric that you're tracking, that might not be appropriate for your business. But like the greater sentiment is just like really understanding your business metrics that are appropriate for you, and understanding the targets that you need to meet in order to, like, one, hopefully break even, and then two, meet the ones that investors are, interested in backing. So it's more of just like a general sense of like, be really aware that like you are a business, and at the end of the day there is a bottom line, and your employees and your runway are definitely expecting you to really be thinking about monetization and thus revenue. And investors will most definitely be looking at that regardless of what stage you're. I mean, like pre-seed is, probably still too early, but like, I mean, I've heard of investors like wanting to see, actual some revenue for seed stage companies, which, is a completely different story like 2 years ago. So it's just the reality. But if people think about that and make it part of who they are fundamentally as a company, it just like, pays dividends in the end. And if that's just like, we have a full-time head of analytics, but even if that's just like finding someone at your university, giving them, a little bit of Bitcoin to like help you stand up like a little bit of an analytics program, I think is like really, really important. It just at least tracking the bare minimum basics, I think is really crucial for anyone who's building in this space and just building in general in this market.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Sure, but I can give it our example, which is pretty simple. It's quite straightforward for us because we just have basically one interaction with the user, which is an order, buy or sell order, and we would just earn some fees on every transaction. That was pretty obvious, and then the idea is to bring in as many users as possible so that it reflects on the volume and the revenue. But then there are a few things that are quite unexpected, and I think here you should be comfortable with trying new things. I still remember it was the first year we just launched in July. I was the only developer, and Julian came up with the idea of a referral program in August, like 2-3 months after we launched. He was like, oh, we should implement a referral program. I was quiet. I wasn't really willing to do it because I was like, look, there's pretty much a lot of things to do. We just launched 2 months ago. There's a lot of UX work, features works, and all. And I wasn't convinced that it would work. But I just was very excited about the technical challenge of implementing our own custom solution for the referral program. That's why I did it. And he also convinced me that it would work. And today we are bringing a lot of revenue every month thanks to the referral program. And we just had to give it a try and see how it turns out. So sometimes it's quite unexpected from where you would get some revenues. So I would say you should have one main source because that's important. As Desiree said, for investors, for employees, for runways, you need money anyway. But then there are a lot of other ways you might need to try and see if it works or not.
And if I remember correctly, you have like the fee, but you were also paying for on-chain fees, and depending on how expensive that was, it would affect also your bottom line. So how has that changed how you think about?
Yeah, that's true. These are things we didn't really consider early on, but for us it was clear that, again, to make it simple, it had to be an all-included fee. Like, we cannot say to the user, you have 1% fee, And then depending on the on-chain fees, you will have an extra cost, but we don't know the cost, right? Because this is how Bitcoin works. So this is definitely a no-go for our users. Now they know they have 1 to 2.5% based on different conditions, and they know it's all included in that fee. And it was all fine until last May, obviously, where the fees just went crazy, and we had to pay the on-chain fees ourselves. I mean, this is a service that we provide to our users, and there was no way we would charge this to our users just because the network was just going crazy. And we couldn't just explain them that, oh, this is just Bitcoin, to deal with it. So it was on us, it was our responsibility. And obviously, since then, we are also looking at solutions. Lightning is one of them, but also we need to make sure that we can still be on the positive while we have also some unexpected costs like the one you just mentioned.
How about you, Oscar?
Yeah, I would say just to add to that, maybe two things that I could share that might be useful to people building out there at an early stage. I would say the first thing is, don't be afraid to ask your very, very early users to pay, even if you don't feel like the premium offering is really there yet. When we first launched Fountain on the app stores, we added a premium subscription mostly to just try and protect ourselves against the app store rejection, which we thought might happen. And the premium offering was basically nothing. It was just support Fountain, and we had a lot of people sign up to it just to kind of support us. So even if you don't feel that you have something to include in that premium offering, just try it anyway, and you might be surprised, especially with your early users who want to see your idea be successful. And then the second thing I would just say is experiment with monetization and try different things. I think especially with Lightning, you have that power of programmable money, and so whether that's like an interesting new referral program that Adem has obviously implemented, or you've got programmable money, there might be new ways that you can monetize your idea. So I would just say experiment, and don't be afraid to essentially offer something that's premium to your early users that doesn't really offer too much, because you might be surprised.
Yeah, I saw the app, and it's less than $3 a month to support and join the premium. It's really thoughtful, very well. Like if you want to see the transcript or if you want to see other things, that's what it allows you to do, from what I noticed when I joined. But also, I think you're creating something with a circular economy, which I think is really valuable, with the value for value, where obviously they earn sats, but then they can give those sats back to the different builders and podcast creators. And also just the transparency of the splits really makes us feel like, okay, not Spotify is not going to get 80% of this. It really is going to the app developer, to the producer, to the song that was integrated into the podcast. It really makes the user feel that this is the trust factor and the money factor. They go hand in hand in a way that is more positive than in the fiat system currently, or in the other podcast systems. So I appreciate the effort that has been put into Fountain. And as I said, I joined recently after meeting you and learning more about it. So thank you. To close, if possible, these are builders that are probably just starting out. Some are very experienced, but others are starting out. Is there anything you would say to them of like mistakes you made, or things that they need to have? Like one of the conversations that we had in was that money is a bad thing, right? It's dirty. You have to be open source, and you just have to do it. And one of the conversations was, well, just hire a co-founder, right? If you're not really a money person, hire somebody that is thinking about that angle for you. Are there any advice or ideas that really changed your way of thinking about how you're building and how you are thinking about products that can survive a downturn or a huge upturn?
I mean, I think the one, I mean, I feel like maybe it's like an unpopular opinion in this space, but it's just like, I love the ethos of Bitcoin and open source, and I think it's really great. But when you found a company, especially when you take on other people's money, it's your fiduciary duty to do what's best to grow the business. And so you will have to make hard trade-offs, whether that comes with like custodial solutions, um, what have you. And so I think, and I'd be interested to get everybody on this call's like, take on it, where it's like, as you start out, you start hearing like these very, very loud voices on Twitter who, don't agree with some of like the technical decisions you've made. And, at the end of the day, like, I, would hope that people who are building now and, founding companies, if you need someone to rely on, we've all dealt with this, but it's just like, you have to drown it out because like we are in we have a Bitcoin bubble. Like when we launch a new game or feature, I can see the Bitcoiners come and play and I love them and I will, I value them more than any other user. But like, if we don't break out of that Bitcoin bubble, like it's not going to happen for any of us. Like this thing is not going to happen. So I think it's, just again, going back to the sentiment of you need to build a business, and you're not building a business for the sake of building a Bitcoin business. You should be thinking about how can you take Bitcoin and solve real world problems and be, again, like take a very pragmatic approach to business building. That would be like, I think my biggest kind of takeaway over the past couple of years. And I think, maybe I'm not sitting here saying like, I'm so smart. It's just like, this bear market like really slaps you into reality. Like that's all I'm saying. So like learn the hard way. And I think everyone here, like, there's just you just have to like weigh the, your personal, your kind of personal ethics with like business, where it's like you have to make those trade-offs. Like at Thunder, we're really passionate about being non-custodial, but like, you know what? The easiest thing for our users to use a lot of the times is Wallet of Satoshi. Some people get pissed off that we recommend that, but I'm sorry, it's the easiest way to onboard someone the fastest. And we do our to our best ability to, teach people about becoming self-custodial and going more down the rabbit hole. But like at the end of the day, again, it is a business. The other thing I will point out for people who are, just starting out, bank accounts. This is something that you want to talk to like, kind of more like hardened Bitcoin companies about, is just like approach for like, just operational banking. It's something that we struggled with up front. Obviously banks are very hesitant to work with folks in our industry, as they see us high risk. And I'm sure it's even worse now after some of like the more recent scandals. But I'm happy to make introductions, but it's just something to start thinking about very early on, especially before you start, making money, fundraising. You need somewhere for that money to go. And so that's like another thing is that. And then also you have to realize like a lot of times you have to play by the rules in order to change the rules. And like I'm very, very, very passionate about this. Like I hate the App Store and Google Play. I hate their rules. But like, guess what? My users won't know how to download our games if they're not in those stores. So I have to play by the rules. I don't show up being like, these rules are bullshit, I'm gonna break them. It's just not how it happens. We've actually established really great relationships with Apple, and we have amazing representatives at Google, who, after you just follow the rules, be very, very transparent and just like very open about what you're building. And these people will eventually hear you and see that you're doing good. And they will help you, work into the rules, and like eventually things might change. So that's my other like real thing is like, I love to be a rebel and like go against the cause and like be this like hardened Bitcoiner. But like, at the end of the day, like sometimes, getting your way and like changing the way the world works is by like, just making it easy on people and like doing the right thing. So that's the other thing that I would really recommend is just like try and fit into the status quo, and then we can hopefully all change it on the other side.
I really like what you said, and I will add on top of that about the trade-off aspect. You mentioned custodial versus non-custodial. For us, it was open source versus closed source. We are not open source. Although I've been using Linux for years, I always prioritized any open source project, Firefox, Thunderbird. I would always go with the open source alternative. But here as a business, we had to take a decision, be it IP, be it coming from VCs, whatever, and it didn't make sense to be open source. I'm not saying that we will never be open source, but we just had to go that way. And the same applies for, as Desiree said, for Apple Store and Google Store. So you need to play with the rules, and sometimes it's not always the way you would like it to be, but you need to take that step forward if you want to if you really believe in bringing Bitcoin to the next level, let's say. And another aspect that worked really well for us was the team, the core team with me and Julian, because if it wasn't for me, the Relay app would still be just on a temporary folder in my laptop somewhere, and I would just be going crazy every day working on it and building the new feature and all, but never ever releasing. I'm always like a pro, ship it, but I'm the last one also to ship anything that I ever built. But he came up with, like, we were very complementary. I was the techie, and he said, you know what? Just forget about everything for 3 months. Just build this thing. I will do everything else. But the only condition is in 3 months, whatever you have, we put it in the App Store. Like, seriously, whatever that is, it goes to the App Store on July the 1st, 2020. And that's exactly what happened. If it was for me, I would have never released that version. To just still be there, and one more week ends up being months or even years. So that's why I would say just ship it. Just ship it. And that's the complementary aspect with co-founders, and the fact that you're also not alone in this journey, because it's quite lonely already by itself being a startup founder. So it always helps to have people who share the vision with you in this journey.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I think on just shipping it, I mean, the first version of Fountain that we launched on the app stores was the most terrible looking app you've ever seen in your life. It was so bad. But if you have something slightly unique, you can kind of get away with some of that stuff, at least at the very early stage. So definitely just, get what you're building into the hands of users. And then I would also just echo what Des was saying about, trying to build for people that are not necessarily in the Bitcoin space. Try and describe your product without the word Bitcoin in it, or without the word Lightning in it, just, based on what unique thing that your product actually does. And I think that if you can, everybody that's a Bitcoiner or believes in Bitcoin is probably going to get excited about your product on one level just because they're excited about Bitcoin. The real challenge is, can you go and find someone that doesn't know what Bitcoin is, show them your product that uses Bitcoin or uses Lightning, and get them excited, and then after the fact they'll learn that, oh, actually it uses Bitcoin under the hood. I think that's the real opportunity here, because you can use the Lightning Network, you can use Bitcoin to build new products that haven't existed before, but you need to try and do it in a way where, when you're communicating the benefits of that product or just what it does, that you're not using the words Bitcoin or Lightning or any of these kind of terms that we use all the time. So I would say try, if you have a project in the tournament already, and you are trying to target like a mainstream user, like try reframing how you talk about the product, whether it's on your website or just in the description. Try rewriting all of that without any of the words Bitcoin or Lightning or anything like that, and see how that changes the reception for just, ordinary people.
I'm going to mute myself because my dog is going crazy. I think he's saying it's time to end this. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here and for helping us create this community. So thank you from Bolt Fun and from Full Go Ventures. And we look forward to having you on a next event soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.